Hello everybody, this is BKC back in Planet Explorers in my crisis suit here. Today I want to go over the editor. We want to go over aircraft a little bit, and so let's go ahead and jump in the editor with the little tank system. You're going to go to create. We're going to go to a character, we're going to go to aircraft, and we're going to do a helicopter. Now, a helicopter, you can technically, you don't have to build a helicopter. Oftentimes I do not. I find the rotors a little bit weird. You can't just use these little VTOL rotors. I find they're the easiest to use. For these little little icon, little VTOL rotors, they just work great. Matter of fact, probably one of the most creative things I've ever seen by somebody who didn't really know how to build aircraft, and they had no concept of how to make anything, but they did want to play the game. Basically, what they did was they came in here. They dragged out a square, like this. Let's say, I don't know about, let's say like this. And then what they did was they put little 4x4 posts on the corners, 20 high. Let's go 20 high on all four of them. And basically what they did was built a flying table. It's plain and simple what it was, but I thought it was one of the most creative things. It actually flies pretty damn well. Go back into parts, you put your flight cockpit in here. Doesn't even have to be square, doesn't even have to really nothing special about it. No custom alignments, no nothing. Throw your Type 2 fuel cell here and here. Essentially, save it. Flying table. Capture it. Save. Okay. Export. Enjoy. Go to, I think it's an item at the very end. Throw it down. Get on it. Nothing was made symmetrically. Nothing was made. Didn't spend any time on it. It flies great. So aircraft are not that, really that scary. There's nothing special about them. The only trick that makes them different than, say, a car is you basically have to watch your weight and you have to watch your balance, because you can get a vehicle to where, like this one I just threw together, I didn't make nothing symmetrical, I didn't check to see if anything was centered, and you can see it's basically just sitting there hovering. It doesn't have but 1 kilometer of forward or backwards movement in a hover. It's pretty basic and simple, but I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the tricks and tips that I've learned for building vehicles in the Creator. Maybe try to get a little more advanced than we did with the basic car. So let's go to aircraft and helicopter, and I'm going to try, since I don't use the helicopter rotors that much, I'm going to actually try to use the helicopter rotors and do a little bit more advanced. It's going to challenge me and let you kind of see what you got to basically deal with a helicopter. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my reference plane, and by how much, what I usually do is I basically bring a landing gear out. Let me put my reference plane all the way down. I put a landing gear over here, and I go, I want my helicopter to start somewhere about, a little bit because you don't want to come down on a hill or something like that and have your body of your helicopter hit the ground before your landing gear do. And you really don't need landing gear. If you set them down very gently, you won't take much damage, if at all. But if you do hit the ground hard, the landing gear do absorb some of your damage. So by the time you get into the game, you should, by the time you build a vehicle, you should have found aluminum. And aluminum's got the highest durability of anything. And as far as all these other materials, it's out of the highest durability. Either make it out of wood and just make it a throwaway vehicle, or make it out of aluminum and, you know, make it very durable so it can last. So what I'm going to do to start this is I'm going to put my my mirror on, and what I'm going to do is I'm kind of looking at a reference photo. It's actually a Grand Theft Auto helicopter. Most helicopters are basically a sphere or an oblong, you know, surface. There's nothing really magical about them. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, let's say I want my helicopter to start, say, I'm going to start right here. And then I'm going to drag out all the way to the other one. And I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go, let's make it a little bit like oblong. So we're going to go about 30 by 40. Oops, I messed that up. Let's undo. Because I didn't have my thing set right where I could pull it back. Let's go 30. No, that's 40. I want to go 30 by 40. Okay, I got to drag back first. Let's drag back. And that's about a good shape for a helicopter. And I want to go up about, let's go 40. So just pulling numbers out of my head. But yeah, that's kind of a helicopter shape. And then most helicopters have a long tail rotor on them. And so I'm going to work with my reference plane here because it's hard to pull off of angles like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to center it up about right here. Let me get it as close to touching as I could possibly can. Let's say that's pretty good. We'll go 10 by, what was it, 10 by, I think that's right, 10 by, I can't see, 10 by 84, okay, and then let's hit tab to make it kind of toward the back. Tab, I want my cone facing backwards. Will it not face backwards, or do I have to drag it from the back forward? Let's test that theory. I don't even know that, so let's see. So we're going to go 10 by... Maybe you cannot turn a cone that way. It doesn't appear that you can. Okay, well we're doing a cylinder then, because I did not know you can't face a cone that way. But what we're going to do, we're going to go to the cylinder brush. They do the same thing. Since it doesn't have to be a taper, we're going to basically do 10. We're going to go all the way into the helicopter. 10 by 82. We want a tab to rotate it, and I think that's front to back. And we're going to go 10 by... Let's go 12 and give it a 13 and give it a little... Oops, I did it the wrong way. Undo. Okay. So let's just drag it out, get it the right way first. Tab. Let's see. Tab. Okay, that's the way I want. Let's see if it holds that. Yes, it does. Okay, so you can place it, rotate it first, and then drag it out the way you want. So we're gonna go from here 10 by 80 something, whatever, doesn't really matter. 71 by, let's go like 12. Let's see how that looks. That looks okay. Notice I didn't drag it in enough, so what I can basically do is put a little depth on. Let's go positive. I don't know if I don't think I need depth. Start at the lowest part that you can select. Okay, hold on. I gotta get my cursor on the green to where I can come up. It doesn't want, I mean, not the green. I want the. Maybe I gotta do it from the back. I don't know. I thought I'd do it this way, but I can't get. There we go. There's the blue. Okay, and then what I do is I just hit Shift and forward, and it kind of made some kind of crazy little wacko thing in there, but that's okay. We can live with that. Put the oval tool in right here, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of bring our reference plane up, and basically I want to drag. Let's see, 10 by that. Yeah, it's 10 by tab, and then just pull up a little engine cone or whatever. You'll get all kinds of little weird things, but basically that's a helicopter shape. I mean, that's 90% of your helicopters out there. Come in here, let's put a rotor on it. Okay, we got this big fancy rotor. Okay, there we go. We got us a helicopter. Let's go into the statistics, and I'll show you what's the most important thing about helicopters. Notice this little cross plane right here. You got this little long. What that's doing is that's showing you the center of gravity for the helicopter. And since it's right here, basically the helicopter blade is in front of the item. So we can go ahead and, let's see, no cockpit, no fuel. So I got to add some stuff first before I can actually do anything. Then we're going to put a tail rotor on here. What I'm going to do is, I find if you just put one tail rotor, you run into trouble. So what I always do is I put two tail rotors. Put them both in or both out. It doesn't really matter. It always tells you something about the balance or something like that. But I mean, if you just want it to look like one, basically just put them inside each other. I'm going to lift it up a little bit, move them in, and just hook them together. And you have basically one tail rotor. And then, you know, if we want to hollow this out a little bit, this is like 80 long. So what I can do is I can put my depth on. Let's put a depth on of 80. We gotta go back into materials for that. Let's put the depth of about 80. Might take me a while to get there, but what it's telling me is I'm gonna go 80 deep into this thing. I can hide my parts to get them out the way, and then I can right click and I can add selection. Go to the inspector, delete selection. Now you can see I got a hollow tube. Delete set. Let's check the statistics before. This thing is 134 tons. And if you notice, when I start deleting stuff, the weight's going to start dramatically dropping because, you know, a freaking solid block of aluminum to make a aircraft, it basically wouldn't fly. I mean, aluminum's light, but it's not that light. So basically I can sit here and I can delete stuff. And you see how I'm pushing kind of close to the edge? If you accidentally put a hole in it, you can always just undo it. So, you know, when you're hollowing stuff out, just do one little block at a time. and kind of check over and make sure you didn't put a hole in your work. And you know, there we go. Let's see. Refresh. Now it's only 126 tons by just taking the some aluminum out the tail. And notice I didn't go like too far into the cockpit area. Also, if I put the parts back on, notice how much the center of gravity has moved. It has moved a lot more toward the forward, which is basically where you want to balance your helicopter on the rotor. If the center of gravity is before or behind the rotor, it will drift forward or backwards a little bit. So you don't really want, you kind of want, what I do is I kind of leave in the design to where I can go to parts later on. And then say if this was my final design, I would select my rotor and I would just move the center of gravity to almost dead on. And the helicopter would hover without drifting too much. When setting up a helicopter, I do tend to prefer it to go a little bit forward instead of like a little bit backwards. And the reasoning for that is when you're coming in for a landing, you could kind of come in kind of hot. You're always flying forward. And I like to just tap the back, which kind of like stalls it out and lets it come down. And it's just more realistic. It's actually how real aircraft fly. So I always prefer to do that. And now, say I don't want any ugly fuel cells in this thing. Let's go back to parts. I can come in here. We're already working with 126 tons. That's not terrible for this game. This game kind of over exaggerates. But let's go ahead and put some fuel cells in here. We're going to put one here. We're going to put one in there. We're going to put one in there. Let's put all those in there. What I can do is I can turn the mirroring off. I can move all these. Let me select it. I can move all these in the center line a little bit. I can move these back. And I'm going to put them in basically. I'm going to hide these in the tail rotor. I don't want to see them. I'm building this, you know, right now it's not a beautiful helicopter, but I wanted to basically show you how you start off with a basic shape and you add to it. And it doesn't really have to take a long time. What I want to do is I want to move my reference plane up. What that does is it lets me, actually what I should do is I should center them all up first on the ground. The center line is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of them on center first. That way I know I can move them front to back and up and down, but they'll always be center unless I grab the tiller bar. That's a good thing about the way the tiller bars work, that you can only grab one. And so if those are all dead down in the center, there's no way I can misadjust them by grabbing them from the side. So I could just bring them all up and hide them in the tail. I might have too many, but whatever. Yeah, let's just delete this one. Okay, now they're all hidden in the tail. Let's go back and check our weight. So we'll refresh. We only went from, 126 tons to 128 tons. So fuel cells didn't really do much. And notice that the center of gravity has moved back because I have put more weight in the back of the helicopter again. So, if I was finalizing this to export it now, I would just move my rotor back a little bit and it would fly straight. But on this particular helicopter, I don't really want that look. I want this look. So I don't even know if I got that centered. Let me check that out real quick. See, I don't even have it centered. There it is. It's centered now. And you can rotate helicopter blades. say this helicopter doesn't have enough lift, what I can do is I could just drag another helicopter blade and put it basically inside the other blade. I could put it on top of it like that, or I can just select this one and rotate it 45 degrees. And what that will do is it'll hold on. It'll double my helicopter's lift and also double the fuel consumption, but it'll double the lift and, you know, kind of take up for some of that weight that if the helicopter actually is having trouble lifting. And it also helps stabilize the helicopter by having multiple blades. I don't know why the game works like that, but if they were counter-rotating, it would actually stabilize. One of them's a little off from the other one. And actually, see how that center of gravity is dead in the center? If I left it like that, you probably wouldn't notice those two blades were off, but that would actually perfectly balance the helicopter out. But for today, I want to do it dead center to kind of simulate a slightly off helicopter. The next thing we want to do is windows. We want to hollow this section out because this thing still weighs a ton. Let's refresh. We're back up to 134 tons by adding that extra rotor in, but it also gives me more lift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my depth down a little bit. I'm going to go back into materials. I'm going to take my depth down a little bit. Well, a lot, because 80 is a lot. And what I want to do is I'm going to show you how to carve like windows out, since we don't have windows yet. And if they do add windows, it's going to basically what we're going to have to do is select entire sections and replace the material with glass and then hollow it out. But for now, all we can do is really simulate glass. So let me say this helicopter is roughly, this is 30 voxels. Let's see, my grid size is, a minor grid is 50 centimeters, and my major grid is 1 meter. So this is 1 meter. So, let's see, that's, okay, so 10 voxels on this one is 1 meter. So it looks like 30 voxels deep will go all the way through the helicopter. So let's put our depth on 30 because we want to make sure we go all the way through this helicopter. And what I want to do is basically I want to put like a bay area, like just a side hatch. I'll start off this deep and I'll go inspector, delete selection. I went all the way through the helicopter. Now there's my bay door. Okay, that gives me access to get inside this thing and start hollowing it out. But for now, all we're going to do is we're going to come in here. We're just going to put some basic side seats in there. Did I have mirroring on? I did not have mirroring on. So let me delete these. Delete. The game doesn't appear that if you put side seats out of balance like that, they will make the helicopter fly different or anything like that. But basically there's my little cockpit area. I could put 2 passengers back there. Let me just hide this window. I still have the X and Y mirroring on. Now I want to leave like a little split in between here for my thing. So I don't want to select. Let's see. I want it to be about halfway up, and I want it to be about this high, and let's go this deep. And we'll go delete selection. Okay, that starts me making a window, and then I say, okay, I come to the side, and I come in, and I'm going, okay, my reference plane is each one of these is 10. So it looks like 15 voxels. Let's start off with about 10 voxels, because 10 voxels will get me anywhere from the side of this thing to this whole area. So bring my depth down to like 10, and that won't get us into any kind of trouble. Even if we do go over, let's leave it at 15. It won't hurt anything, because anything I delete out of here is clearing this little side window area. So let's just go ahead and say, well, we're on this plane, so let me just draw back from here, and then delete that selection. And you see it just went all the way through, no big deal. Delete selection. Let me move my reference plane out the way. Delete selection. Sometimes you're going to have some leftover voxels, so you might have to just go in there by hand and you know, clean some stuff up. Oops, I grabbed down instead of in. Always remember that you got to grab the voxel that you want, the direction that you want. Say that was back. So let me go back, and I want my red voxel for this. So I'm going back, and then let's go down from here. Nope. Go down. Delete selection. See, I missed a little bit, but no big deal. Just work from the closest point to you and work down toward it. And sometimes you'll get some little jaggies and stuff like that, and you'll have to come in and clean up some voxels. And okay, so we got all this out of here. Let's go ahead and subtract all of this and get rid of all of it. And when you're doing this, take a look around and make sure you didn't undo anything that you want to keep, because if you take a look after you delete a major section, if you see a hole that you don't want, it's hard to repair this. So go ahead and you know, take your time to look around a little bit and not get too in depth by getting caught up in this deleting selection, because you can always go back and delete more, but it's hard to put back if you get past that 20. I think it's like 20 selection buffer that you can have before you can't undo something. So you know, always kind of delete a little bit, and if you know you're doing something small like this, just go look around and say, okay, I'm good. You know, and then like, okay, I don't like the way this looks, so let's clean this up a little bit and take a little weight off. We'll take all the way down to here. We'll take a little, let me hold the shift key and do this a little faster. Delete, 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 delete. Okay, I can live with that. I'm going to take this one off, and I can live with that. That's basic. Well, let's take some of this off. Okay, delete selection. That's basically, you know, that's just a very, very, very simple basic helicopter shape. And, you know, I've simulated a window. The more time you take, the more realistic it would look. Let's go back and look at our specs. We've got it down to 103 tons now. So you can see deleting some of this stuff has a dramatic difference into the weight. So let's go ahead and take some of this off, and we can select and make sure, see, it doesn't go as far. So let's unselect it and add just a little bit more depth. Plus, plus, plus. Let's go at 20 depth. Okay, boom. Delete that. We could come in here, we could use our reference plane, and we can go, man, I don't know how high this is. Well, we can check about right here. It's at 45 on the reference plane, and right here is about 35. So I know I got about 10 voxels in here to play with at the best. So what I would want to do is I'd probably only want to do like 5 voxels at a time. I can just basically come in here. Let me get inside the helicopter. Sometimes positioning is the hardest part. And I can go, I know I'm going 5 voxels deep. Don't get too close to the side. Delete selection. Check, make sure you didn't have a hole. You know, catch anything you missed. Delete selection. Don't get too close to the sides, because remember, you're doing 5 voxels at a time. And just start removing some of this excessive weight. This is the kind of the method I was talking about, where you build up and then subtract from it. Here, like on this front section where I'm getting thin, let me show you what I normally do. I just delete my depth. I go all the way to 0, and what I do is I just select the selection like this, and I just take 1 voxel at a time. And what that'll do is it'll let me get this material out of here, but it'll let me give me a little padding, a little buffer for holes. Like if I accidentally punch through, see, I think you can see I'm getting a little thin here because the voxels are deforming. So I want to just drop back a little bit more. And what that does is it lets me start removing some of this weight. And I'm not going to sit here and take all of it out, but let me go ahead and put, that looks like about 20 voxels deep. Let's put the depth up to 20. And I'm going to take a lot of this weight out the side, because this is where all my weight is, and here in the bottom. So I'm just going to hold the shift key. I'm going to come down here, come down here, come down here. Now there is an advantage to doing it 1 line at a time. You'll see a hole if it arises quicker. And if I have to undo a selection, I'm undoing all of this in one swoop. But if I do it 1 line at a time, I can check it between undos. And when I get a hole, I just replace one thing. So right there, I didn't get a hole, so I'm okay. Let me get my reference plane out the way again. Select that, get rid of that. Let's go back to this inspector and see. Now we're down to 92 tons here, so we're getting actually pretty good. 92 tons, and let's check where our center of gravity has moved. Man, it has really moved. Let's go back and try to get some of this weight out the bottom here real quick. I'm just going to do it, let's do it 5 voxels, or let's do 3 voxels deep at a time. And get little pieces out. And the more time you spend lightening your aircraft, the easier it'll be to balance out, because if you have a 200-ton aircraft and you're just moving a 1-ton part around, it's not really going to change your center of gravity that much. But if you have a 50-ton vehicle and you're moving a 10-ton cockpit around, it's easier to balance out. So see, that looks like an actual real, you know, like the side of a helicopter. So I really don't like this, so let me just get rid of it, make it a little bit smoother. See, I'm going to check for holes every so often, because I'm getting kind of close with, see, I did a hole. Right there, I did a hole. That would be hard to repair if I don't notice it, so I'll just undo that selection and take my depth off, and then just go into that section manually, knowing that right there I did a hole. And then come back and add like a, well, let me turn the and add, say, well, I want a cockpit. I want like a dashboard on this thing. I don't like that the way it looks. I can come back here and add this in. As long as you have a square voxel that's not too crooked to attach to, you can come back and add all this stuff in. Now, if I got too far in the front, if I put a voxel here, it would mess up my pretty sphere. So, but if you're going back in, like I've hollowed out, let me find where I was. I've hollowed out the dash area, and then I put the dash back in. So, let me put out a little bit of area here just so I can get my cockpit in here. Oops, not that one, this one. That's pretty good. I still got a lot of weight in the back. I could plate plenty weight out of here by removing this floor and continuing down until I get almost maybe 1 or 2 voxels thick. And I could probably get this thing, I'm already down to 82 tons. Which for some of my aircraft is still kind of high. But for a tutorial aircraft, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know how. Oh, okay, there it is. If I removed all of this out the roof, all of this out of here, all of this out of here, and then put the floor back and the floor thing, I could still have it look like this and probably remove almost another 20, 30 tons off of this thing. But for my demonstration purposes today, what I want to do is I'm just going to leave it heavy. Notice I've got 627 aluminum in this thing. That would be another advantage to get it lighter. Let's see, where is the durability? No description, color, components, width. It hasn't really given me a durability yet. I guess maybe because I don't have. Let me get my landing gear out of here. Parts. Delete. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my reference plane up to where I want the bottom of the helicopter to actually sit. So let's say about right here is where I want it. And I'm going to put these landing gear on it. I'm going to put one on each side right here, and then I'm going to put a centered one. When you have your mirroring on and you're trying to place parts, it sometimes won't let you put something in the center. It goes red because it doesn't want to duplicate two. So sometimes you do have to turn your mirroring off and then just kind of make sure you're hitting center. So you know, just put your mirror back on. And what I want to do is I'm just going to put some little winglets to connect this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back default aluminum. I want my little winglet to be about right even here, and I'm just going to freehand them in. There we go. I'm going to put like a little nope, undo that. I'm going to put a little 45 on it right here. Oops, one more. Okay, there's my little winglets. They look a little flimsy. Let's double them up. Actually, I kind of like that pointy look, but let's delete that. And sometimes making mistakes, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes making your mistake, you kind of learn something. Like, see, deleting that by adding more, I kind of made it more aerodynamic. I put like a little, shape to it. I like that. I like that a little better. We probably want a little tail fin on here too, something to look cool, because we don't want it just to be boring on the back side. So what I'm going to just do, let's just use the angle tool. I don't really use it that often, so And we want to kind of just hold shift and kind of start removing all this inside. Delete selection, delete selection, delete, 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 and just kind of play with what is too much, what is not enough. Get rid of some of these wacko voxels that you can see. Okay, delete selection. That looks pretty good. Well, let's still got some more. Let's get rid of this, this, and this. Delete selection. Okay, that sits in there pretty nicely. And then I kind of just want to get rid of. I actually kind of want it to be a little more square. So let's put a little more on the back side. Come in and kind of put a angle on it to make it look more like a tail fin. So okay, that looks pretty good. That's basically a helicopter right there. If I wanted to, I could fill in this area and all that stuff. Let's go back to the inspector and go back to materials. Look where our center of gravity has moved now. It is majorly different. But we don't have our cockpit in. So let's go ahead and put the cockpit in and see how that changes everything. I have no reference for center, so this is a good spot where the reference plane can come back in. You can put your grid out, and or you can just basically bring the reference plane all the way up here and go, hey, I want it, my cockpit, somewhere about, let's see, I think it's here centered, and then just bring your reference plane out the way. I know my cockpit is centered. Bring my part down into it and go, okay, that's pretty cool, but it's a little bit. Actually, I don't think that looks bad. I kind of like that going into the front cockpit area. Now we can see that my center of gravity. Let's refresh it, make sure it did move a little bit, but basically, it's telling me we need to get some weight off the back of this thing because it's too far back. I really don't want to move my rotors that far back. So basically it's just forcing me to take some of this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this back wall. And since I have a good, let's check with the reference plane how much we have. We have a good, I think that was 10 voxels. So let's do a 10 voxel depth and just start removing some of this stuff off the back. Let's go back and check this text sticks. See, now we're down to 74. And let's unhide our parts. See, now we're getting down to 74. And then if I wanted to, what I can do is I can go back into parts and go, well, man, I don't really want this much weight in the back anymore. Well, what I can do is I can go back to these parts, these fuel cells that I've hidden, all stealthy into the tail rotor. If I can get to them. There you are. Let's move them all forward a little bit because they're way back in the tail section. Let's move all of them because I think they're like, do they give me statistics on them? I don't know if they do. It's kind of hard if you do hide something to find it again. but I think they do give you statistics on it. I think each fuel cell weighs like a ton or something like that. So I'm just going to start moving parts around because I don't want to spend 9 hours on this, but I just want to show you that we can get something, you know, basically that flies pretty good. Okay, moving them around does get a little tricky if you hide them. And it doesn't matter if one's inside the other or anything like that. Let's go back to refresh. Man, I am still not where I want to be. So, let's just do this. Let's just delete these real quick. And see what we can do with them without reframing, putting them in the tail. Okay, let's refresh and see what we got. It's going to tell me no fuel cells. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide them in the body a little bit. Basically, if I got my mirroring on, which I think I do, go to parts. We can go to fuel cell. I'm going to put a fuel cell in. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, hide this. This is getting me confused. Put my reference plane down. Let's bring these up. Let's bring these into the body where you can't see them. And then let's refresh. Still not great, but it's getting there. Oh. Refresh. I guess those fuel cells just don't weigh enough to get this where we want. So we're going to have to move the rotors back, or we're going to have to put more weight in the front. We can move the cockpit up a little bit more. Refresh. Yeah, I really need the front of the helicopter to be a lot more heavy. I would have to really, if I wanted to keep the rotors there, I would have to really spend more time lightening this out. Mostly, like maybe just lighten out the floor section in the back, but not in the front. Most of my culprit is right here. I have tons and tons of material right here. And, but for now, I guess I'm just going to start spending all that time. I'm just going to move these to center plane. Make sure they're exactly on each other. If you have problems selecting one box from the other, you can always grab one and move it up out the way, and or just delete it and put another one back. But my rotor is almost dead on the center of gravity, so let's just hurry up and put a little paint on it. Let's make sure I don't have anything badly wrong with it. See, my durability is 24,000, so this is a durable little helicopter. You know, I could spend time like going from the top and removing all this, and you know, I could get a lot more durable. I probably could cone this off. I didn't know you couldn't put a cone backwards. I wish I would have known. But let's go into paint, and we'll just put a bright red paint job on it, and we'll just use the brush to where I can just real quickly put me a bright red paint job. Let's go ahead and put a decal on the side of it. I usually love this decal right here. Notice when I'm placing it on curved objects, it doesn't sometimes take. I'll show you how to fix that. Like say I wanted it here, but it's not really sticking right. What that is go to your, well, let me select the sticker first. Go to your inspector tab. What it is it's just not deep enough. See this 0.1? Change it to like 0.15 and apply. See, it makes it a little deeper and it added more. So let's go to 0.25. And see, now it fully applies on a curved surface. Another way to fix it would have been 0.15, which like it originally was, is you can angle the decal by coming in here and rotating the decal on like that. So that's a couple ways to fix decals that. And then see, now I'm like, well, I don't really want it there anymore and I want to bring it back down. It doesn't really affect it that much. The decal's still going to look the same. But if you wanted to bring it back straight without deleting it, you can come over here and just see, look, I need 12 degrees on the x-axis. And because you have no reference. But, oops, I got it the wrong way. See, now I've done it again. I've done it 0.21 the wrong direction. In a situation like that where I've grabbed it, I try to correct it, it's just better to delete it, grab another one. And okay, I really just want it here, and I want it a little bit more back. There. Let's put the Apiece logo up here by the engine, and we'll put Planet Explorers on the tail rotor. Now look on the other side. Since it's mirrored, you see the designs are wrong. So when you put words, what you do is you go back to the inspector, turn your mirroring off, so you don't want it to apply to the other side, and don't mess with the placement. But I just put another one on there. Delete. Go to your inspector and unclick mirrored image and apply. And see, on this side, Planet Explorers is right. On this side, Planet Explorers is right. It's right on this side, Apiece, and on this side it's not. So just uncheck mirrored and apply. Now it's right on both sides. Let's go back to our materials. We'll go to statistics and see, just by adding that a few things here, moving things around, I've moved my center of gravity again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a gun on it, because guns are fun. It's really the fun part of the game. So let's go back to parts. They have an aircraft machine gun in here. Let's put my mirroring back on. I'm going to just put 2 of them. Try to get some of the weight back on the front. Okay, and they seem like they want to hang. And I've got 2 of them too close together. So, and they look a little goofy. So let's play with the scaling on them and just get them. I don't want them so long. They look a little goofy. So let's bring those down to 0.5. Okay. That's some nice, cute little machine guns. They look a little fat. So let's check the x-axis to 0.5 and see what that looks like. That looks okay. I kind of like that. So let's go ahead and bring them up. And bring them up into the... Make them kind of look like they're attached a little bit. So we got some guns. If I would have been smart enough, I could have probably put it back here. Brought these out more. Put a missile launcher in there. Because the missile launcher is fun. Let's go back to our materials and check the statistics and see where, by refreshing, that really didn't change anything. Really didn't change that much, but that will be a functioning helicopter. Let's go ahead and hide the mirroring window. Let me turn the mirroring off. Get rid of my plane, hide the window. We'll save this and we'll go see how it flies. Oops, I need to save. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me get my helicopter back in my And the F trick works when taking a picture also. So, like I say, I want to get on the side of this thing because I'm way too far out. My camera's too sensitive. I mean, not sensitive enough, so I got to use my mouse wheel back to make it more sensitive. Get something that lets you let it see that it's a helicopter. And like I said, as always, I do like a dark background for my aircraft. And it's also a nice contrasting color. I want to go up a little bit. I want to come in. That's good enough. And we'll call this Red Heli. Oops, my caps lock is on. Red Heli. And we'll save it. Okay? We'll export it into game. And export. And it says enjoy. Let's go check it out, see what it does. You know, there's a lot of things if I wanted to spend time on that I definitely would change about it. But for the sake of a tutorial, I think it's a pretty good looking little helicopter. Let's go down to some flat grass so we can put it down. Don't worry about it dropping down. It doesn't really hurt anything. Just walk up to it, get on. And it flies great. It's got a little bit of backdrift, but you know, you can change that. And since it's so heavy, that 90 something tons, 80 something tons that it was, it doesn't really have a good climb ratio. You got to kind of basically wait for it to climb. And it might not even get over these hills at this weight. So, you know, spending a little time lightening it out, every voxel you can get out of it. See, I'm in a situation where I can't climb to this plateau. So, if this was actually a vehicle I would keep, I would go in there and I would definitely remove some of that weight because I can't even get onto this plateau with it. It just doesn't have the lifting power. So, but it does fly pretty well. It's very durable. I can smack stuff with it. I can cut the power. I could come in if I could find some flat land anywhere. See how it lands. I can come in and then just add power. I got a little damage, but it's okay. It survived. And there you go. Hope that helps some of you guys. Lets you see a little bit about the aircraft and some of the design aspects of it. Kind of touched on how you do a fill a volume with a basic size that you want and delete materials instead of doing it the other way like I did with the car where I just added materials till I got the shape that I wanted. And let you see how your basic major shapes, you work from that and then just delete. And like I said, if you spend a little time deleting more and more voxels, getting rid of a lot more weight, I could probably get this thing under 50 tons and it would fly excellent. And it's not a bad craft right now. It just doesn't have the climb rate I'm used to. If you see in my playthrough, my little grasshopper, I'm always complaining that it can't climb, but it does have 4 fuel cells. It is a very tiny little aircraft. None of the aircraft really climb as much as I'd like them to, and none of them really come out the air as quick as I want them to. By contrast, I can show you one of my earlier helicopters that I built. Nope, that ain't it. It's under aircraft. I don't know why I have helicopters, and this is one of my first helicopters. Like I said, all my first designs were real stealthy. Like I said, because it's easier to do these angles and straight lines. So I basically created a whole line of stealth vehicles, just stealth designs. And this one I got 8 fuel cells, which is I think the max for this size craft. And what that lets me do is I can fly. I never, ever, ever, ever have to refuel this. But at 13 tons, with only 3 rotors, it doesn't really have the climb ratio. It can get to max ceiling. It just doesn't have the climb ratio I like. And then the only other helicopter I ever built was just a single rotor, one in the back, which technically in real life probably wouldn't work. This one would have to be severely angled over to counter the rotation of the blade. But I'll export this one. This one's only 28 tons. And we'll just compare it size-wise and flight characteristics-wise. It's a little bit smaller, not much. I have 4 passenger seats in here, and I have these massive cannons. I have, I think, 6 fuel cells in here. I could probably add more. I don't think the flight time is too excellent on it. But this only has 2 rotors in the whole thing. But being lighter, it does lift a lot better. Let's see if it can get over those mountains. It does have, what's some other guns I have on there? Oh, I got machine guns underneath for fast firing. And then the heavy guns that, see, this one can climb because it's less weight. It can actually get to max ceiling. So I can actually use this helicopter, and it flies just as good as the other one. But at 28 tons with less rotors on it, because I don't need the lift, it actually makes for a slightly better flying helicopter. And also, for night missions, I put a lot of lights up like in the cargo bay, all at different areas. So 360 degrees on the ground almost, I have these light patterns. So it helps finding stuff for night missions, looking for poo, anything like that at night. Just makes it a lot easier. So this is, like I said, an idea of just, if you take your time and spend a little more time than I did on that other one, even though the other one was a more complex shape, they took probably about the same amount of time. This one just has a little more detail. I took more time aligning the lights. It did come out a little too low. I wish it wasn't so low, because I used these landing gear which hang off to the side, and by the time I attached them I kind of made it too high. I mean, I ended up building it starting off too low. I wish I would have started off a little higher on this one, but I did have to add this little pod up here to end up moving these rotors more forward as I added more stuff on. But I did in the end eventually balance it out and get it to fly good. And like I said, I could hold 4 people on here. I have these big guns which I think do like 400 damage apiece, but they're a slow fire rate. And I have the 2 little guns underneath, which are a higher fire rate but low damage. So hope you guys get kind of a better idea of helicopters and how they work. And like I said, next time I think we'll do either guns or swords and shields and stuff like that. So till the next time, I'll see you guys.